Welcome everybody to the Farmers Market Weekly Recipe Organizer Box. For this project today, I'm using the Farmhouse Living Collection from Carta Bella. The main staple in the project is the 6x6 paper pad, and I'm also using some of the frames and tags and some of the die-cut ephemera pieces, but those are optional. You will also need 2 sheets of 5x7 chipboard. They can be plain, they don't have to be white. Here are the Farmhouse Living stamps if you would like to use those. But the main stamp in this project are the Day in the Life designer stamps. And I also used a couple of the Sentiments from the Gather at Home stamp set. Now from the 12x12 collection kit, I'm using a couple of the regular 12x12 papers, as you can see here, and also the sticker sheet, and then a few of the cut apart journal cards. Now I'm leaving one of those 5x7 chipboard pieces solid for the bottom of the box. Next, what I'm doing is cutting the next pieces. I'm making two 2x7-inch strips for the sidewalls of the box. Now if you don't want yours this tall, you can cut these down maybe to 1.5 inches if you would like the sides of your box to be a little bit shorter. So here I'm just placing these onto the full sheet of the 12x12 paper, and then just kind of measuring along the top and the bottom to make sure that I've got it pretty well centered onto the paper. And you can see here I'm just making a placement line inside, that way when I put my adhesive on the backs, I can still keep a nice straight line when I get ready to adhere everything down to the paper. Now after getting that middle piece adhered to the scrapbook paper, I'm going to come back and place my paper onto my scoreboard, and I'm going to score around the edges of the chipboard. This will give a nice crease when I get ready to fold up the sidewalls of the box. I wanted a nice clean edge when I got ready to fold over the paper onto the sidewalls, so I made a little flap using the excess paper. So what I did is I came out 2 inches from that base of the chipboard where my sidewall would be, and just scored along the excess there, so that I scored right there along the 11-inch mark, and that will give me a little bit of a flap to fold over to give me a nice clean edge when I fold everything back over the chipboard. So see, when I place that down there, and then you'll see here that I'm going to come out just a little bit past the sidewall, make a score mark, and then that piece will just fold over, giving a nice clean edge to the sides of the box. Okay, now for the tricky part. Now that everything is scored and taped down, I'm going to start cutting away the excess edges of the paper here. And you can see I'm kind of cutting at an angle. It just makes the paper fold a little bit better when you're folding over the two edges that'll be side by side. So you'll see here where I'm cutting these apart. Of course, I'm cutting right along the score lines where those two intersect. So you'll just cut right there. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's why I just use scissors and just kind of eyeball where the edge of that needs to come up and meet the edge of the chipboard. All that will be folded over and you won't see any of that. So just use your regular scissors to trim that away. And then now you can see everything will just start to fold over. We'll just put some glue there to hold that together. But first, before we start constructing this, I'm going to come back and start adding the different folded papers to the inside of the box. It will make it easier to work with. Okay, for the next step, we're going to take our 6x6 paper pad. And Carta Bella's paper pads are a little bit longer in length. You see the drilled hole in the top there. So it makes them about 6x6.5, which is fine. I'm just leaving that solid, but if you want to trim that away, you can. What you want to make sure that you do is have a 1/4 of an inch score mark at both ends of the paper. So I'm going to score here at 6 1/4. And then I'm going to flip the paper around and score again at 6 1/4. And that will make the height of the paper, or the length of the paper, actually 6 inches. So you can see we'll just fold and make little flaps there. This is where we'll make the foot of the paper once it's folded. And because the box itself is only 5 inches wide, I do need to score the sides. So I'm scoring at 5 1/4. And then flipping the paper around and scoring again at 5 1/4. So once the sides are folded up, it will make my paper 4.5 inches wide. So see, once I place that down inside of the box, that will fit nicely there. And again, I'm just trimming away the edges of the paper just to make it easier to fold. So you'll just cut those at an angle. And I'm doing all this just kind of practicing and just kind of working through the design as I'm going here. So you'll see next, I'm just moving through the paper pad, and I will repeat the process with the next sheet of paper. I've done 11 sheets of the 6x6 paper and have used just kind of the plainer designs on the backs. Nothing too busy, some more just the muted pieces, and you'll see that I'm just pulling out some of the various pieces. There are enough patterns in the 6x6 paper pad that you can have a different pattern throughout the box. And here are all the papers once they're folded, creased, trimmed, and ready to go. And the reason for leaving the sides intact instead of trimming those away so that the paper across would be 4.5 is just to give it more of a finished look. So to tack that side down, I decided to machine stitch all of those side flaps down. Now, not the 1/4 inch flap, but those side flaps. And I'm just using a zigzag stitch here, using my sewing machine. If you wanted to do another stitch, or if you just wanted to glue those in place or use a double-sided tape to tape down the sides, you can definitely do that. I just think for the country feel of this little project, I thought the machine stitching looked really nice with that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to make these into our little rounded divider pages for our box. As you can see, all of the papers have been stitched along the sides. In those 1/4 inch flaps there, we're just going to make a little foot for the bottom of the rolled paper. So I'm just placing glue along one of the flaps and then gluing the other flap across the top of that. I just found that hot glue worked better, but you can use any kind of liquid glue or double-sided tape if you want to. And so this is what they look like when they're completely all folded over, and that little foot there is on the bottom. So of course the little foot is what we're going to glue in place inside of the box. So I'm just placing more hot glue along the edge, outer edge of that foot, and placing it right along the front of the chipboard piece of the base, getting it nice and centered there at the very front. And there you can see what it looks like on the sides. And I think the front piece, just making sure you get that nice and straight, will make all of the rest of the papers follow suit. So just make sure you get that first folded piece nice and straight, and then I'm just going to repeat the process. I've organized all of my patterns so that the colors kind of vary. I have more of a floral design than a solid piece, and then all of the colors just kind of follow along in a pattern, but you can do these any way you like. And then I'm just checking placement here before I add glue to the bottom. And you will notice too, I just kind of start to kind of scrunch these together a little bit. Okay, so there's what that looks like, and then just kind of scrunch them together, and then that will allow you to keep placing these behind each other without too much gap in between. Here, as I got to the end of adding all of the rolled paper to the inside of the box, I had 2 extra pieces left over, so I have 10 already glued down into the box with 2 remaining. And as I really got to looking at it, I didn't need that 12th piece, and that's totally okay. I can work the design with the days of the week so that will accommodate only having 11 of the dividers inside. So really, depending on how you get these spaced apart, you may or may not need all 12 pieces. So if you have one left over, it's okay. You can work with that. Okay, now that all of the 11 pieces have been glued down to the base, I'm going to start building the side walls. So you'll see here that I'm just cutting this side flap, and I always cut along the crease marks. That does help to give placement. So you'll see right here I'm cutting along the edge of the chipboard wall, and then coming out at a V and just cutting away a small slice of that paper so that everything will fold up and won't have any bunching going along there on the side of the paper. And then I'm also cutting a V here where these 2 side pieces intersect. Of course, again, cutting along those score lines that will help give you a good guide. Again, you can't really mess up on this unless you cut 2 down, cut past the score line, because all this will be folded over and hidden inside of the box. Okay, once again, I'm grabbing my glue gun and just going to use that to adhere all the flaps around the edges. I've glued down all the flaps first before actually adhering the sides together to make the box. Why I chose hot glue, I don't know. It just glues fast for the project. For demonstration purposes, I do like using a liquid glue a little bit better, but this did just fine for the box. And then you'll see here, that's that side little piece of the flap. I'm really glad that I added that and didn't have a cut edge there along the side. It makes it a little bit extra sturdy too, because the front walls of the box don't have any chipboard. It's just the actual scrapbook paper there. So you'll see that now I'm just going to add a little bit of glue along the outside flaps, and we'll just start putting those walls together. Okay, next we're moving on to our little labels that we're going to make for our days of the week. I'm using the Planner Frames die set from the Day in the Life collection kit and a strip of that wood grain paper. I cut out 7 different labels, and I'm going to use the VersaFine black ink to stamp the days of the week on to the very tops of the tabs. You may wish to use a die or pre-made tab that's a little bit bigger, because as the days of the week the words get longer and wider, you may need a little bit more to accommodate those words. So here you'll see I also alternated the patterns. I used the wood grain pattern, and then next I would use that green and brown pattern as I went throughout, adding the days of the week. And here I'm stamping the word Tuesday, but when it came to the bigger words, I used the round abbreviated stamps for those. You'll see here that I'm using Wednesday on that wood grain paper. Next, I'm taking this 12x12 paper that is of the 4x4 journal cards and cutting 3 of those from the sheet just to use as just some extra detail, dimension, color inside of the box. So you may want to add a couple more of these or do the 3x4 journal cards and add those to the box. But it's a good place just to maybe tack on or attach an extra little note or recipe or something like that. But I like the height that it gives too in between the pages. Okay, next I added 2 handmade bows to the front sides of the box. And this is totally optional. You may have a different way of tying your own bows, but I do have people asking how I make my bows, so I just wanted to kind of give you a brief overview of this real quick. As you can see there, how I just kind of fold that 7/8 inch ribbon and kind of fold over the 2 tails, and then next I pinch it there in the center and then pinch it up from the bottom, and that gives me a nice crease. This will make your loops stand up really nice and pretty. And then I just take some thread and wrap it around that, pull it really, really tight, and then I'll just knot that off, and there's my bow. Okay, we're nearing the end of the project. Here you can see I've added some clothespins to the tops of the days tabs, and then just an idea of how to use the box. Here are some recipes. So you can add your grocery list to it. You can assign each one of your kids maybe a different day of the week and let them add in their idea for dinner to the inside of the box, just however you want to do that. And next, to kind of give it a little bit different of a look, I'm adding some little feet to the bottom of the box, and I'm using these snowman shaped wooden pieces that I found at the Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to use the Waverly white paint or any kind of paint, whatever color paint you want to use, and I'm going to paint those up right quick. Voila, it's done. And again, I'm using my hot glue and just attaching these at the 4 bottom corners of the box. And that's it, everybody. Here's just a final run through of the project as I have finished it. I added some ribbon to the tops of some of the tabs. Of course, the clothespins, stickers, die cuts, ribbon, buttons, just really the possibilities are truly endless. Turn this into a little baby scrapbook, turn it into a little memorabilia for your senior, just any kind of little thing that you want to keep ideas in. I think it's just really fun and functional, and I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for joining me in this cute little project.